We have been working on a series, which will lead up to a documentary, but we've been working on a series called What Would Muhammad Do? Lone Wolves, ISIS, and Islam Explained to the West. Just enormous amounts of information pouring over enormous amounts of information, and including stuff on ISIS. Over the weekend, it was released that intelligence officials have in their possession about a 32-page book or booklet, whatever you want to call it, a manual that they found in Afghanistan, where ISIS is inviting the Afghanistan Taliban to join ranks with them and say, look, this caliphate must succeed. It will succeed. Islam will be reunited under one caliph, and we're going to behead the infidels. That's what it said, until every last one of these infidels are beheaded. They mean it. And the huge mistake that the West makes is they do not allow historic Orthodox Islam to speak for itself with its own narrative. In the West, we have a narrative, okay? We do. Easter, Christmas, even people who are nominal Christians, C&E Christians, Christmas and Easter Christians, there's a narrative that's going on here. Jesus healing the blind, walking on water, changing water into wine, and many of our jokes are about that, okay? And so we ask, what would Jesus do? That's our narrative. They have a narrative. And we have to learn to simply let them speak for themselves, let their narrative tell its story. Their narrative is very, very different than ours, and it took a huge turning point at the Battle of Badr in Muhammad's lifetime. I don't have time to go into it today. I'm getting ahead of myself to tell you this, but here's the bottom line. I'm reading over the weekend about this investigation in Chattanooga, and they still haven't been able to determine a motive. I'm not making this up. None are as blind as the willfully blind. Shame on you, FBI. Shame on you, Obama. They have literally made it a matter of policy to not use religion and religious motivation as a grid through which to study a crime. So if that was the motive, okay, if my religious beliefs, my faith in Jesus Christ is why I want to go to Africa and be a missionary, and I go, and everyone is staring at me going, how could he go to Africa with all the disease and the flies and the starvation, and he must be troubled? Well, he said it's because he's a Christian, he's following Jesus. I don't know, we don't want to hear about religious motives. Maybe he has a heartbreak. Maybe there's a girlfriend that dumped him. Maybe it's sexual repression here in the States. Maybe he thinks that he will be able to write a book later and cash in financially. Yeah, that's the ticket. Maybe he's just disturbed. Maybe he needs medication. Well, no, he said that it's because he was at a church service. And he heard an altar call, and he went forward and said, Lord, I dedicate my life to you, and I'll go in your service to be a missionary if you want. No, I don't want to hear about that. I don't want to hear about this Jesus stuff. Let's think. Maybe and the person who just won't let the narrative speak for itself. We have people like that when it comes to Christianity, of course. But my point is, if someone really does have a conversion, they really have a crisis of conscience in Christianity, they turn to the Lord, to Jesus' example, to the example of the apostles, the book of Acts, okay? That's what they do. These guys in ISIS have an example. And then when they say, there is no God but God, and Muhammad is his messenger or his slave or his prophet, whatever you want to, whatever word. When they say that and they believe it, they enter into a certain framework of rules. And the further they go into that framework of rules, the more they realize, wow, well, this is what Muhammad did. He cut people's heads off. Muhammad killed people with his own hand, okay? And they read these narratives. They read this storyline. And they say, well, I'm going to turn to my heroes. I'm going to look at Muhammad. I'm going to look at his early companions. Listen to me. You've got to hear me. I know I'm going to go over on my time here, but you've got to hear me. Listen. Muhammad left a template, okay? He left an example to these people, and the record is clear. When communism was a major threat, the 50s, the 60s, our government knew that ideology mattered. And there was a book written called Fire in the Minds of Men. And it was about what possessed communists to work so zealously. There were revolutions, there were assassinations. I mean, it was bad, okay? Much of the world was under the heel of communism. Still is in China. Motivation mattered. They had their book, the Communist Manifesto, the little red book in China. They had their marching plans. They had their marching orders. They had their game plan for the subjugation of the world. And the motivation of it was evil, and it terrified people, and they looked at the motive, okay? Imagine the fire in the minds of men who want to kill and want to die. They want to die. I've won, I've won. That's what one of the men said in Muhammad's time when he was killed. He was a Muslim who was killed in battle. And the guy was like, I just killed him. And he's saying, I've won, because he won martyrdom. He won eternal life. He won paradise because he was martyred, fighting in battle. So communists scared us, but guess what communists did not want? They didn't want to die. They didn't believe in heaven or hell. We're facing people who want to kill and subjugate the earth, just like the communists did, but they have no fear of death because they want to die. The communist would do everything he could to not die. And in many of these cases, the devout Islamic man will do everything in his power to die. How are you going to fight that? How are you going to fight that kind of ideology and motivation? You have to kill them. So when the time comes to go fight ISIS, which we must do, we're going to have some type of a change in our foreign policy and our battle policy. I'm working on it. I will get to you. But I'm telling you right now, don't take these men prisoner. Look at what's happening with the guys in Guantanamo that we're releasing. One by one, they're going right back to fight against us. I'll be right back.